Good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen, anybody watching at home. Welcome to the Licensing Committee meeting on the 4th of February. Starting off, you all know the fire arrangements. We don't obviously have any practices planned for this evening in the normal way. So moving on, can we have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies of absence this evening for Councillors Kel Finan-Cook and Mark Gordon.
Thank you. In regard to the number 2, the minutes of the last meeting, could I have a proposer and seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of October, please? Hode and Valerie White, please. Thank you. Any declarations of interest, members, please, for any of the things we're going to be discussing this evening? Number 4, then, public question time. None received. Lovely, thank you. Number 5 is Mr. Passion, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, members, you'll probably recall that we used to have a air quality management area in Frimley, and this was revoked because we met all the required standards, and we formally revoked it through DEFRA in December 2024. The law requires every authority who hasn't, if you haven't got an air quality management area, you then need to have a local air quality strategy. We have developed one in conjunction with a consultant, and and we're doing it as an interim strategy because we're mindful of local government reorganisation. And it may well change. They may have a West Surrey air quality strategy. There might be a Surrey-wide air quality strategy. But what we wanted to do is to ensure that we had an air quality strategy, so we were complying with the law, but also we were in a position that we could amend that or form part of a larger air quality strategy if that was required at some future date. We have, I'm not proposing to go through the strategy. What we're asking you this evening, Chairman, if you're happy with the strategy as drafted, we would then go out to consultation, both internally and externally, internally to officers and also to members of this committee and all the ward councillors. Externally, we were going to go to the Public Health, which is a statutory consultee that we need to go to, the Surrey Air Alliance, and Highways, which we would need to contact as well to seek their opinion on it. And any amendments or any comments we receive from yourselves would be greatly appreciated, either this evening or at some future date. And we would like to then bring the strategy back to this committee in June for final approval, if you're happy with that. Although I said I wasn't going to go through the strategy, but if I could just refer you to table 3 of the air quality strategy, which I think starts at page 21 of your pack, and there are some 28 objectives that we have there, or actions, and those are the actions that we will be asking you to look at in due time and come back to us to see whether you feel those are acceptable or not, or whether you want others added. Chairman, that's all I want to say at this point.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. I can't get my words out tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. Passion. Any questions, members? Councillor Kang, please.
When's the closing date for that consultation? When do you have to have feedback? Is there a particular date?
We haven't actually set a date at the moment, but if the committee is happy with the draft as it is, we will discuss the actual timescale. But I would expect 2 months would be a reasonable. I don't want to leave it too long because people will never come back. But I think 2 months would be a reasonable period.
Thank you. Any more questions, members? No, thank you. In that case, we are asked to resolve. Go back to the piece of paper. Thank you. We are asked to resolve that the draft Surrey Heath Interim Local Air Quality Strategy 26 to 29, as attached to Annex A to this report, is approved for internal and external consultation, please. Would I have a proposer? Councillor Rakes, and a second, Councillor White. Thank you. Moving on now to contaminated land, which I believe is Mr. Passion again, please.
It is, Chairman. Thank you very much. So just a short introduction to this, that it's a legal requirement for all local authorities to have a contaminated land strategy. The last strategy, which I believe I wrote back in and presented back in 2012. So this strategy updates that 2012 version and reports on the progress made over the last 14 years. It fulfills the objectives in Part 2A of the Environmental Protection Act 1990, and that's namely to identify and remove unacceptable risks to human health and the environment, to ensure that contaminated land is made suitable for its current use, to ensure that the burdens faced by individuals, companies and societies as a whole in complying with the regime are proportionate, manageable and compatible with the principles of sustainable development, and to ensure that where redevelopment of sites take place in the borough, that the process controls any risk from land contamination to existing and future site uses, as well as on-site workers, and to ensure that the open provisions of information to the public, developers and other statutory agents. So the draft strategy is in your pack, and happy to answer any questions. There is a well-established mechanism for land contamination management in the council, where environmental health, planning and development control, building control and property services all work together to ensure that we're fulfilling those objectives that are set out above. So really it's the 2012 strategy which has been updated with changes in legislation and guidance, and also to set out what we've done over the last 14 years. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Councillor Kang, please.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It's obviously from 2013, 14 years ago. You were sort of 12th of March. Now, during that period, have you had any instances where land has been contaminated by either runoff from any farmland, I suppose, or tip or anything? And obviously you have a management team. So is that something? Obviously the council has dealt with it. How frequent is there? Has there been instances, and what has costs been involved? Just because I obviously not being a councillor. Yeah. At 2013, that period is quite a long period.
So Surrey Heath is an area which hasn't had a lot of industry in the past. We identified, originally we identified over almost 1,500 potential sites. A lot of those are former nurseries. There was a lot of nurseries within the borough. Sort of electricity substations and all these sort of things are potential sites where contaminated land. All of those we've reviewed all of those, and the vast majority are what would be regarded as quite sort of minor and very, very low risk. We had 14 sites which were identified as being potentially contaminated land. A lot of these are old landfill sites that we've had within the borough. All of those have been assessed. We've looked through old historical maps going back to the 1800s and looking at what was there previously. When I say we, it's the royal we. It's my colleague Anne Zhang, who's the scientific officer, but she's examined all of those sites, looking at quite detailed information. And although you can't say there's no risk at all, they've all been identified, but they're not what we would regard as high-risk sites. But a property can be, so we deal with it. If we get a complaint, as you suggested, that an area is contaminated, we can deal with that through regulatory measures by contacting the landowner, etc., to deal with that. Yeah, so.
Just to follow on, so with landfill sites, obviously there might sort of be houses involved on there, obviously there be methane outlets, etc. Where does the liability, so does the liability pass on to the developer once the land is developed? Or does the council in any way have any further liability on any?
Yeah, when it's further developed, then the liability, then if somebody purchases the land. But we need to ensure that all the screening that we've done in the past, all of that information is being posted onto GIS maps, so we know where all these potential sites are. But the liability would be.
You'll have to explain GIS.
Geographical information systems. Yeah, and that's shared with all the various departments. I mean, we've got a whole range of different ways in which we would regulate contaminated land. And the main way we deal with that is through the development process. So if somebody's purchased a land and they're going to redevelop it, we would again, it's not me, but my colleague would review this and provide advice to the planning officers and about any remediation methods that are required to make sure that the land is suitable for use. To be contaminated, for land to be regarded as contaminated, there has to be a pathway. So although a lot of land has got, some land has contaminated material in it, it's not legally defined as contaminated land unless there is a source, a pathway, and a receptor. And so although when we've got these sites, I said we've got just under 1,500 potential sites, most of them at low risk, but they are not legally described as contaminated land because we haven't got that pathway. So although we've got these sites, we haven't got any land within Surrey Heath that's legally defined as contaminated land.
So when you say pathway, you mean contaminated material sort of dissolving, running into waterways? I mean, are
Absolutely,
waterways monitored? How frequently are they monitored? Well, presuming that's under
the Environment Agency would be involved in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, members? In that case, we are asked to resolve that the draft Contaminated Land Strategy document 2006 is attached to Annex A is approved. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Quinn and Councillor Raikes a second, please. Thank you. So moving on now to number 7, which is the Environmental Health and Licensing Service Annual Update. Ms Soper, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present the annual update report to the committee on the work of environmental health and licensing. In the past, this has been a verbal report, but as the committee requested last year, a written report has been provided, and I don't intend to go through it in detail. Just to summarise, the report sets out the range of work that's undertaken by environmental health and licensing, covering a whole range of statutory services, covering licensing, food safety, health and safety, public health, environmental control and housing standards. These statutory services deliver the council strategy priorities with regards to protection of health and the environment. The report details the range of licensing activities that are carried out and also the food and safety and environmental control and housing standards work that's carried out, some which is reactive, some which is programmed. The food and safety service is reported in detail in the annual plan that comes annually to this committee in June. And the annual air quality status report comes to this committee in October. There are a number of other aspects of the work of the environmental health and licensing that are on the agenda tonight. And obviously we've had air quality strategy and the contaminated land, and we will be moving on to taxi policy and licensing act policy. The report sets out the range and the volume of work that's carried out, and you will see that 2025 was a very busy year, particularly with regard to pollution complaints, exacerbated by a number of large construction sites in the borough and the good weather, which resulted in a large increase in complaints, 45% increase in noise complaints from the previous year, which put the team under some pressure, but I'm pleased to say that they managed to maintain response times to those complaints. In April of last year, the housing standards team moved within environmental health and licensing from the housing service area. So now within environmental health, we have the team that's responsible for taking action against disrepair in the private rented sector, licensing houses in multiple occupation, caravan sites, and taking action with regard to filthy and verminous premises, and also arranging welfare funerals where people have died in the borough who don't have anyone else to bury them. So that's a new area that will be included in the annual report going forward. That team is also preparing for the introduction of the Renters' Rights Act, which which comes into force May 2026, which introduces a range of new responsibilities on the council in terms of landlord responsibilities. Where environmental health and licensing are working with the housing and homelessness teams in preparing for the implementation of that legislation. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Councillor Rakes, please.
Yeah, I was interested to spot that 45% increase in noise complaints, and I wondered if that's people are more sensitive, or is it just that there's been more noise from, as you said, in their building sites and other things?
I think it's Tim's team that deal with that area of work. I think because the good weather last year started quite early, we started to get noise complaints and dust complaints from some of the larger construction sites in the borough quite early, and that continued throughout the summer, and particularly the Mindenhurst development, where you've got people who are occupying properties very close to construction sites. That did generate a number of noise and vibration complaints that the team responded to. And the good weather did continue, and that was the main reason behind the increase. Did you have anything to add, Tim, or is that summary? No?
That's absolutely right. And we had 3 major sites, and they were all doing groundworks at the same time. So we had piling going on at the same time and major demolition going on at the same time. So it was a bit frantic going from one side to another.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Hode, please.
I'm Mark Gordon, written off my two. Thank you, get that right. Thank you, Chair. I'm not particularly familiar in detail with the Renters' Rights Act. I have a little bit of understanding, but not much. What's your general view on how much increased workload you think this might bring to the team? Or is it really impossible to judge?
I think it's quite hard to predict. Obviously, there are some reports that some landlords are looking to leave the rental market before the provisions come in because of the changes to eviction processes. We also are aware that the government's going to be doing some publicity to tenants about the new rights they have, which again may generate more inquiries to the council. And so it's a bit of a wait and see at the moment, but we will obviously monitor the requests that we're getting, and there is some new burdens funding coming to the council, so we will look to resource this work using that.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn, please.
Thank you. Thank you for this obviously really thorough update about work that's been happening across the last year. Obviously, one of the biggest issues when we first were elected and shortly after I was elected was the stench from the Thames Water Camberley sewage works. I noticed there's not any reference to pollution complaints in relation to odour in this report from the sewage works. Is that because none were received? Because I do think there's still an ongoing issue and there's some residents who I think have still complained about this. So I'm wondering if it'd be good to get an update at some point about the number of complaints about that are still coming in and what's happening with those. Thanks.
Yes, certainly. We did receive, I think it was in the order of 10 or 11 complaints regarding odour. They were short-lived, and on investigation there was no activities going on at the treatment works that were any different to the usual business as usual at the treatment works. Possibly people are more aware of the treatment works given the terrible incident with the storage of raw sewage, which resulted in a serious odour nuisance. That tank that was used is not in use, and I think the complaints we had were more to do with just the normal business as usual, and perhaps depending on the wind direction, that may determine who's impacted. But we're certainly aware of what went on at the site previously. We maintain links with Thames Water and would be quick to respond if we felt there was an issue bubbling up.
Thanks. That's reassuring to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just ask you, in the instance of a situation like that, will you continue to go out and visit and monitor the site, both on an arranged basis and a non-arranged basis, if you see how I mean?
Yes, certainly. I mean, if we receive any complaints, we will respond, but officers, when they're in the area, they will monitor, they'll do drive-bys to see what odours there are. So if we felt there was a problem, we have officers who are out all the time who would be able to report back, and we could respond to that.
Lovely, thank you. Did I see Councillor Kang? Did I see your...
Thank you. It was a similar question to Councillor Quinn's, actually, but that's been answered. But there was one. In terms of pests, I mean, are there any sort of reportings of hornets or something where any species which we normally don't find?
I'm not aware that there has been. The Pest Control Treatment Service is quite prescribed what insects they deal with, and it's dealt with by a contractor on our behalf, and they haven't reported back any unusual pests.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rakes, please.
Yeah, if we're sort of nearly to the end of the questions, I've been on a couple of the subcommittees, and I just wanted to take this chance to commend the work of the licensing department in trying beyond reasonable measures to get people to comply with the licensing regulations, and then the thoroughness in holding them to account when those licensing conditions are not met. So I certainly appreciate the amount of work that goes in on that. So thank you.
Thank you, that's appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Rakes. Yes, as you're aware, I'm always saying thank you because I think that, we are very, very lucky in that our officers go well above and beyond. So, yes, I'd also reiterate that. Thank you very much. Any more questions on the report, please? No? Okay. In that case, I'd like the committee to note the report, if you wouldn't mind. Do I need a proposer and seconder for that? No? Okay. So, okay. Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Mr. Passion. Appreciated. Next, we move on to the Statement of Licensing Policy 26 to 31. Obviously, we know that with the local government review, this obviously won't be applicable, but in its entirety. But Ms. Barnshaw, perhaps you could pick that up if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, committee. So the Statement of Licensing Policy came to this committee in October, and we went out to a full public consultation. There were no valid representations or objections to the policy. Basically, the Licensing Committee is asked to recommend that the Statement of Licensing Policy 2026 to 2031 be recommended to full council, and the policy would come into effect on the 1st of April 2026. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Lovely, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Kang, please.
I suppose it's obvious. Does this line with all the other sort of boroughs in the light of a unity being formed in a year or two?
Yes, Councillor Kang, it's the Licensing Act is a national policy, so all local authorities have to have a licensing policy. That's a legal requirement, and then once we become West Surrey, then all our policies will be.
I suppose what I'm saying, are they all similar and there's not any?
Yeah, I would say they're yeah, so they're all very similar. We have to abide by statutory guidance issued by the government. There is a particular department, but it's, for the life of me, it's gone out of my head. And yes, so we will have we will follow that Section 182 guidance when we're reviewing our policies. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Obviously, we don't know at the moment when, because the new council will presumably have to go through each of these policies one by one. And so assuming that when you have policies like this, am I right in saying then that the policy that we have in the borough remains the case until they review that, whether it be immediately or a few years down the line? Am I understanding that correctly?
I would think so. So our policy for Surrey Heath, even once we've become West Surrey, or from the 1st of April 2027, it would still be in force until then a new one is, so that's why it's dated until 2031.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Hode, please.
Thank you. Related to that then, thinking about the goal of making 7, I don't know how many borough councils will merge, but 7, say, licensing policies, making them into one single one. Do all the borough councils work to the same timeline? So are every borough council renewing theirs this year, or is it on a rolling thing so they could all come up for renewal at different times?
that they are all on a similar timescale. So the Licensing Act became an act at the same time, so the 24th of November 2005. So everybody's policy would be of a similar date. They might not all be April 2031, but in some they may not even merge the policies together. It might be more sensible to come up with a brand new one and incorporate.
It's probable then that all 5 or 7 or however many would already expire
6, yeah.
across those.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Kang again,
I suppose
please.
relating to that, at what point are you working with other colleagues across the other 5 boroughs?
Yeah, so we've started working already. So it's we know it's going to happen. So it's at the front door.
Okay, Councillor Quinn, please.
Thank you. I was just wondering your thoughts on a recent story that the government are going to declare war on fun police, supposedly, and remove a lot of regulations that prevented things like pubs showing the final of the traitors, etc., and try and reform licensing laws. So just wondering kind of if you're aware of these changes and whether they might impact this policy in its lifetime. Thank you.
And yes, I think any move forward and help to the licensed public houses or whichever premises they are would help. There's we all know that they're struggling, and the Licensing Act is dated. That was first brought in 2003, so it's it's getting old. It's time for a refresh. But I look forward to it. Any changes really? Bring it up to date.
Lovely, thank you. Any more? Any more? Okay, in that case, we're being asked to resolve that the Statement of Licensing Policy for 2026 through 31, as set out in Annex A to this report, is recommended to full council for adoption effective as of the 1st of April of 26. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Kang, and a seconder, please. Councillor Hode. Thank you. So we move on now to number 9, the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licensing Policy. And again, this is Miss Barnshaw, please.
It is. Thank you, Chair, Committee. So the taxi and private hire licensing policy was brought to this committee in October last year. Again, it's been subject to a full public consultation. We did have some responses. We had 19 responses overall to the policy. Most of those responses were from the licensed trade, so already either private hire operators, private hire drivers, Hackney carriage drivers, vehicle proprietors. Mostly all of them were supportive of the changes to the policy. You can see all the comments and officers' responses at Annex B. And basically we recommend that ask the committee to recommend that the policy is adopted from the 1st of April 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Sorry, any questions, members? Councillor Rakes, please.
Yeah, just a quick question about Uber, which is mentioned in here because of I think it was raised by one of the consultees as a question. And I've been told, but I don't know if it's accurate, I probably should have checked it, that I think perhaps Hart has a policy specifically on Uber. Is that correct, or that they...
No, so basically I think that the question or the query from the licensed trade is, can we ban Uber from having their drivers in the borough? And the answer to that is no, we can't. We can't stop their drivers coming here and waiting for work. So they're just the same as our drivers can, drive into Hounslow or Heathrow or whatever and wait for work there. A lot of mention about certain boroughs, having this sort of banning them from taking bookings, but again, that's not something that we can do, and it wouldn't be legal either. Their drivers are in the borough waiting for work through the app. And that is, it's not counted as hailing, that's counted as pre-booking, and that's in what they're entitled to do.
Thank you. That is...
Can I just add a comment that I'm going to be quoting the responses to the consultation to all those of my residents who complain that the council never listens and never changes anything, even if you do complain.
Sorry, could I just to note that the drivers, the local drivers, have understandably had, and it's something we've worked on very hard in the past, is the presence of the Uber drivers, because of course they're not covered by our licensing charges and what have you within the borough, because they are set by Transport for London, if I remember right. And so that's something that we have worked extremely hard in the past, certainly during the last term, to try and help some of the local licensed drivers to make life a little bit easier. But unfortunately, as Ms Barnshaw says, that's sadly from the perspective of the drivers, that's unfortunately the way it is. But again, I think some of those considerations, they were taken into consideration then and have actually come through here, but has continued through, haven't they, to try and alleviate the concerns of the drivers where we possibly could.
Yes, we have. And again, as you rightly say, it's Transport for London that license Uber, because Uber have an operating licence with TfL. Their drivers and their vehicles have to satisfy Transport for London's requirements, and they're as equally stringent as ours. And I would say probably their fees are higher than ours as well. But I think that's the worry, that we can't really have any enforcement against those drivers. But if I see them in the borough, I will always stop and talk to them and knock on the window, and they're always perfectly happy to show me their licence and the fact that they are licensed properly by TfL. So it is a worry, and I think it's just that the drivers are worried that they're losing their income to Uber, but that is driven by the customer. So if the customer wants to use the app and call a vehicle that way, then there's not really much anybody can do. Everybody knows Uber. It's down to my granddaughter, who's only 9. But yeah.
Lovely. Councillor Hode then, please.
Thank you, Chair. So with Uber then, is TfL the only licensing body for Uber?
Reading did years ago license Uber, but either Uber didn't renew it, or I don't know whether they took them. They might have had a court battle.
So does that mean then, if an Uber driver is licensed by TfL, that they can then legitimately apply for trade as an Uber driver anywhere in the UK?
Yeah, they can. Thank you. And the same as our drivers they can't apply for hire. So a Hackney carriage can't apply for hire outside the borough, but they can take a booking in Edinburgh and drive that person to wherever, Land's End, quite legitimately. That's. No, they don't. Currently, that may well change in the future, and the government are looking at cross-border hire. But currently...
OK, any more? Councillor Kang, please.
Yeah, might be a silly question, but I'm just trying to seek your views on driverless cars. So this is policy going to 2031, 5 years. There might be some changes.
Yeah,
so how does licensing or things like that apply to...
Who knows? So basically the vehicle would have to satisfy the criteria, but if there isn't a driver, we wouldn't be able to license there. So that's a brave new world for licensing, if that does occur and happen. I think that the issue with that would be the human element. So you've got vehicles on the road that are being driven by, but robotic drivers. They probably won't be making any errors, but it'll be the it'll be the humans behind the wheel.
One to view, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just add that obviously that would require a major overhaul of the legislation, as we're still working with, I think, hackney carriage legislation that dates back to, what, 18 something?
Yeah,
So,
1847 or something.
yeah, I think the legislation would have to be overhauled to catch up.
Well, it still talks about bridles and horses.
Thank you. Councillor Hode, please.
Thank you. Sorry, back again. Change of subject then. Vapes. Legislation changed a little while back to make disposable vapes illegal. How are we doing as a borough in that area? Have we followed the legislation, or are we finding it a problem enforcing it?
Can I stop you, because I don't want to move off the licence of the taxi policy until I've done it. Can I take the question of the work programme? Is that all right? If I take it through to the end, that's lovely. Right. So, any more questions on the taxi policy? Okay. So, the licensing committee is advised to resolve to note the contents of this report and approve the attached revised hackney carriage taxi and private hire licensing policy. 2026 to 2031 to take effect from April the 1st. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Rakes, and a seconder, please. Councillor White. Thank you. So moving on to number 10, the Licensing Act 2003, the summary of decisions. I'm back to Ms Barnshaw, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is the regular report that I bring to committee for decisions that have been made under delegation. The report is to be noted only. There were no contested applications between October and December, and we did have 3 new premises licences issued or granted. They are Favourite Chicken, which is in Park Street, Farmhouse Pizza, which is in the High Street, and your local best one in Frimley Green, which was on the same site as the revoked premises licence. Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor White, please.
Your local best one, 2 to 4 Wharf Road, is that the one? Right.
Yes,
I don't have
it
to
is.
say anymore.
So the premises licence
Has
was
it been
revoked.
renamed though?
Yes, so the premises licence was revoked. They appealed the revocation. It was due to go to a hearing at the Staines Magistrates in September this year. But in the meantime, the premises licence has been surrendered and the appeal withdrawn, and new owners have applied and been granted a premises licence at the same site. We will maintain our vigilance.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? Lovely. We've been asked to note this one. Could I have confirmation of that, please? That'd be brilliant. Lovely, thank you. We now come on to the work programme, but before we do, could we go back to Councillor Hode's question, please, regarding the vapes? Yes, please, that'd be grand.
Thank you, and I apologise for getting it in the wrong section. It was just a thought that came into mind. Government legislation changed on the subject of vapes, making disposable vapes illegal, I believe, or the sale thereof. And I'm just curious how we're doing here in Surrey Heath in monitoring and enforcing that. Do we think we are generally, our retailers, etc., are compliant, or are we having challenges in that area? Thank you.
Thank you. So vapes and those age-restricted products are, they come under the remit of trading standards. But as far as I know, trading standards are conducting visits to premises, and yes, like you say, they're all illegal. So the disposable sort of one use only are all illegal now. And they have confiscated some. Some are being sold under the counter, as it were. But yes, so they are. I think at first they had taken the decision to educate premises, but now they are. Yeah, it's more enforcement or more. You're welcome.
Lovely, thank you. And then If I could come on to the work programme, please, Ms Soper. Sorry, Councillor Can, could you turn...
I've been trying to find the work programme. I've not been able to. Can you... Sorry? Oh, it's supplement. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So the draft work programme is set out for the June committee, approval of the Food Safety and Health and Safety Service Plan, as in previous years, return of the interim local air quality strategy having been out to consultation, and the summary of decisions report. In October, we have the local air quality update, which is the annual air quality status review report after it's been confirmed by DEFRA, and again, summary of decisions. And then February next year, we'd be doing the annual update report for EHN licensing on for 2026 and summary of decisions. And there's just a note at the bottom about the Renters' Rights Act. Currently, that a report is due to go to the executive, planned in April, to get the necessary delegations to officers to carry out the duties within the Act, and to get the private sector housing enforcement policy and a civil penalty notice policy updated and approved. But renters' rights issues may come back to this committee in future. And obviously there's a note there about local government reorganisation, and the implications for this committee will be reported as and when that information is available.
Lovely, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the work programme, please? No? Okay, lovely. That brings us to the end of tonight's agenda. Thank you, members. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to resolve the work programme. I had it in my mind that was a note. I'm sorry. Could I have a proposer and a seconder then, please, for the work programme? Councillor Quinn and Councillor Tedder, please. Okay, right. I'll carry on. We'll go. Thank you very much to members for coming, for people watching at home, and as always to officers and staff whose work, as Councillor Rakes noted earlier, and I said then, is ever so much appreciated. We are extremely lucky to have you, and we do appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.